welcome back. I thought we would continue into this shelter series and we would do another shelter right fast while we were out here. And we're still going to utilize this same sports utility blanket, but this time you can see that I've laid it out long ways. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to create a simple lean-to. Now you could do this same thing by doing it widthwise, but it's hot weather. I want to breeze. I just want a little bit of overhead protection. Maybe sleeping at night, you want to keep the dew off of you, or just to have something over my head in case it rains in the middle of the night. There's many different ways you can set this up. This is just one of them that I use. Now, since the last video, what I did do was I replaced my piece of cordage. This is 550 cord that's in the corner with a piece that's a bright orange. And my hope is that it'll make it a little bit easier for you to see this as we tie these knots. But once again, we're not going to tie anything that's difficult at all. So let me take and divide this out. I'll put one side of the cordage over there. I'll put one side here, and we'll get this tied up. Now because it's hot, I'm going to raise this up a little bit this time. Now this time, I'm going to come up here about my belly height. I'm simply going to go around the tree a couple of times. Basically what I'm doing is making a clove hitch, but really just simply wrapping the tree a couple of times is all you want to do, and that's going to help keep it from sliding up and down. I tie a simple knot and then come over top of it with another knot, and that's like a square knot that's just left slippery so that it makes it easy to pull out. I'm going to step over top of the tarp here. I'm going to come to the other side. Now you remember where we have this bank line, these loops that are pulled through? I showed you on a previous video. We're just going to loosen that up a little bit. I'm not even going to take it out. And I'm going to create a loop just from a simple bend of my 550 cord, and I'm going to place that through the tarp. Now I'll put my finger in there to hold it, and as I look around, find a stick here. You could also use one of your tent stakes, and I'm going to place that stick through that loop and then pull that down tight, and what that does is that keeps this tarp tight on the line. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to simply wrap this around and tie it off. I'm going to move the camera and bring it in a little bit closer so you can watch me tie this knot a little bit closer up so you can understand what I'm doing. Okay, we've secured our line on the other side, and I simply pull this line tight. So this is our ridge line. I just pass that behind my tree and wrap this tree once on the bottom, once on the top, and when I come back around, I just do an overhand knot and pull that down. Then I hold here, I lay the line back over top, and that leaves me a loop. I take this tail end and I pass it through the loop and pull it back in, and that leaves that tail hanging out. And that's what gives me my ridgeline knot, but yet it leaves it slippery so that when I get ready to take this shelter down, it's as simple as taking this tail and pulling it and dropping it, and that knot comes right out. So once again, I just go around my line and pass through into a simple half hitch, pull that down. I hold it with my fingers, lay the loop, make a bend, which gives me a loop on top of the line, pass my tail end up through that, but leave it hanging out, pull this, it creates a loop, but it binds that down and gives me a slippery knot. Okay, let's set up the rest of our shelter. Okay. Alright, I grab two of my stakes and I go back to the corners of my tarp, put my stakes in, pull this out tight, still maintaining that 45-degree angle with the stake and aiming right back between this grommet and that grommet is where I want my point aiming, and simply push that down into the ground. Now I'm going to come to this side and do the same thing. Now when I loop my stakes, what I like to do, you can simply put it in there like that. But what I like to do is I put it through and then I twist it so I wind up with a little bit of a loop. Gives me a little bit of extra bite on the top of that. I'm going to pull this one out and I'm going to aim at that grommet, maintaining this 45-degree angle and then pushing that down. And that gives us a nice tight tarp. Now you'll notice on this tarp, because it's used for teaching classes, we have it marked with 3 large X's. 3 of anything in the wild is considered your distress signal. It means that you need help. So we went ahead, took a little bit of our Gorilla Tape and put 3 X's on the back side of this tarp. That'll help somebody that's walking by realize that we're in trouble and we need some help. So let's move back around to the front and talk about how much room we have under this shelter. Okay, so as you can see, I come up into this shelter and I've got a decent amount of overhead room. I've got plenty of room to lay down and stretch out. And this is my preferred shelter for when it's hot. I want that breeze to come through here. I want some air movement. I'm probably not going to have a fire real close to my shelter. I don't need that heat. If I have a fire, it's going to be a little bit further away. I don't want to sit here and sweat and actually overheat myself. The other thing you can do when it's hot is you can take this reflective side and turn it around. What that does is it also puts your X's on the inside of the tarp. That way people don't notice it and it doesn't look like you're in trouble. But I'll tell you, from up above, when the sun hits this reflective material, it's like a big signal mirror at some times. But that's what it's for. It's for reflecting that heat away from you. So you have an option there. Plenty of room to lay down, plenty of room to do your work. Of course, you could raise it up even more if you wanted to. Just remember that the more you raise the top, the more it shortens the back end. You only have so much tarp to work with. But this is a great summertime shelter to set up. Very breezy, very efficient, very fast to set up, and minimal tools. I mean, 1 piece of paracord, 2 very lightweight stakes that weigh absolutely nothing, and they're multi-purpose. You can use sticks if you want to. We used a stick here for a toggle instead of using a stake. You could certainly cut some stakes out of sticks to put in the back if you want to. But for an emergency situation, I don't want to be running around looking for stakes. I want them right there. For the weight and for the size and for the versatility of them, I'm sold on carrying stakes. Short piece of paracord, simple knots, nothing that you probably don't already know how to tie. And if you're not familiar with them, a little bit of practice and you'll have it down pat. No excuse not to go out, try a couple of these shelters, and once again, spend your dirt time and increase your knowledge of the outdoors and have the confidence that you know how to do this if that unforeseen incident occurs and you have to spend that night out in the bush. So, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft. Thanks for joining me once again. Until the next video, God bless.